20 years. 20 years. Kind of hard to believe it's been that long since this infamous low-speed chase. You know, the one involving O.J. Simpson and his friend Al Cowlings in this white Ford Bronco. 95 million people were glued to their TV sets on June 17th, 1994, as police pursued Simpson along the Los Angeles freeway after he was charged with the murders of his ex-wife Nicole Brown Simpson and her friend Ronald Goldman. A year later, after a trial that lasted more than 8 months, O.J. Simpson would walk away a free man.
We, the jury, in the above entitled action, find the defendant Orenthal James Simpson not guilty of the crime of murder in violation of Penal Code Section 187.
Remember that moment as clear as day. When that verdict came back, many whites were outraged, while the sentiment among many black Americans was that the jury got it right. Well, fast forward to now, in a new CNN ORC poll, it shows a majority of black Americans now think the murder charges against the former football star were true. So what changed? Let's talk about this with CNN political commentator Marc Lamont Hill and Crystal Wright, an editor and blogger with conservativeblackchick.com. Welcome to both of you.
Good to be here.
Thanks, Carol.
Okay, so I'm sure you two remember that day as clearly as I do when that verdict came down. And Crystal, many white Americans were appalled. And many of them, and I'm just being frank here, were saying, what is with black America? How could that be?
Well, Carol, I was appalled, and I'm not a white American, but I remember I was actually working at CNN at the time. I had just come off the heels of interning here in the D.C. Bureau, went out to get lunch the day of the verdict, and I was greeted by black Americans jumping up and down the street, you know, because they thought O.J. had righted all the wrongs in the past when many black men before the Civil Rights Act were wrongly convicted of crimes. But so I wouldn't say all black Americans thought that he was not guilty. But I think, look, time offers reflection for many of us. I'm glad to see black Americans have the time to step back and say, hey, maybe we were wrong. And you know, I think that there's a lot that's happened since then. But I don't know how any person, if they were really honest with themselves at the time, white or black, would think that O.J. Simpson, how long did that chase go on? I felt like it went on for hours. I mean, I was glued to the
TV.
Right.
I know,
and,
forever.
And they found, I think we should remind everybody, when the police finally were able to, you know, I guess get him to come out of his car at his house where the chase ended, they found $9,000 of cash in the Bronco, a mustache, a goatee, glue to put on his face. There was a suicide note. I mean, it's really,
I know, it's
I hate
crazy.
to say this, but I laughed this morning, not at the tragedy of the lives lost, but at how preposterous it was and how bungled the case was.
Absolutely. So Mark, I want to get your perspective on what you think changed in all that time.
Well, I'm not sure necessarily that anything changed. I don't necessarily begin from the premise that black people thought that O.J. Simpson didn't murder people. There were some who thought that, and I thought they were crazy then. I mean, it was obvious to me that O.J. Simpson was guilty. But there's a difference between being innocent and being not guilty. One is a moral determination, one is a legal determination. And I think what many people saw in the case of O.J. Simpson, particularly those who thought O.J. actually did do it, was that the legal system still failed. We saw Mark Furman, we saw racism, we saw police dishonesty. And what the law says is that if the prosecution doesn't make its burden, the person has to be not guilty regardless of what we think about their individual innocence or guilt or morality. And so for many people, it was about O.J. Simpson finally getting the type of justice that other people get. I thought it was disappointing that O.J. Simpson got away with murder. I thought it was disappointing that those people died. But nevertheless, I think those of us who celebrated, we celebrated because the justice system finally worked. It was just sad that you had to be rich and guilty as opposed to poor and innocent to get that kind of justice. And what you see now upon reflection is not people saying, oh, wait a minute, we got the O.J. Simpson thing wrong. Some people realize he's guilty now, but more of it is saying, look, yeah, he was guilty, but still that verdict was fair given what happened.